Our armed forces have been asked to work miracles over the last 18 months. During a global pandemic, in the face of natural disasters and facing dangerous missions, our men and women in uniform have risen to the challenge, just as they have so many times throughout our history. Many of our service members have contracted and then recovered from COVID. Now these heroes, the same heroes, are being placed in a corner by this administration. President Biden's COVID vaccine requirement for the armed forces does not grant our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines the respect that they deserve. As the Senate debates our annual National Defense Authorization Act, it would be a huge mistake not to consider the mandate's impact on our retention and recruitment of service members, and thus our military's readiness to secure our national security. This mandate, tied with President Biden's more sweeping general vaccine mandate, is something that, in combination, has put millions of Americans in so many difficult, untenable, unfair positions. In most cases, these are hardworking, everyday Americans. They're mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, just trying to put food on the table during difficult economic times. These mandates are forcing millions of our fellow citizens into second-class, unemployable status, placing countless of our neighbors on the economic and social fringes of our society, even more than what they're already experiencing with rampant inflation caused by excessive government spending to the tune of trillions of dollars. Now, I've heard from hundreds of Utahns in recent days who are concerned about losing their jobs not just in general, not just in the abstract, but specifically due to these mandates. Some of these individuals are heroic members of our military. These service members were rightly praised for serving during a pandemic and serving in dangerous conditions on dangerous missions. But now they're being forced out, often with limited or no retirement benefits because of the president's mandate. Now, let me share with you just a few of their stories. One soldier told me his story. He's been in the Army now for 18 years, nearly 2 decades. He never received a single reprimand, whether written or otherwise. He honorably and proudly served his nation. All along, he was planning on retiring upon reaching 2 decades of service. He's almost there at 18 years. Just 18 months shy, in fact, of reaching that really important milestone in his career. But now, because of the vaccine mandate, he's at risk of losing his benefits and not even receiving an honorable discharge. Regarding his situation, he said, quote, "This will cause a substantial loss in pay and quality of life for myself and a large number of others I know," close quote. Another soldier who reached out to my office has served for 10 years in the military. He's been informed, despite his many years of successful, faithful, active duty service, that he will not receive an honorable discharge if he declines to comply with the vaccine requirement. Accordingly, he asked to resign from the military. Now, his commanders made clear that he'd be barred from resignation. He sought a personal religious exemption. He was summarily told his exemption request would be denied. Of his situation, he said, quote, "To be backed into a corner with 2 very bad options is both disheartening and sad, especially with what I've sacrificed and what my family has sacrificed on behalf of the military," close quote. Another soldier reached out to my office in a similar situation. This soldier has children who experienced complications with receiving the vaccine. This soldier also has a child with significant learning disabilities. who he's worried about providing for. He said, quote, "This really could be a life-changing event for my family. And I feel strongly enough about it that I will risk all my benefits not to take it. I just wish I had a choice," close quote. These stories are just barely scratching the surface of the countless thousands of service members in similar positions. The Department of Defense has begun prohibiting unvaccinated members of the National Guard from receiving federal pay or benefits. These guardsmen risk being marked absent from training drills if they're not vaccinated. This move has the effect of pushing the unvaccinated out of the National Guard. Approximately 10,000 Marines remain unvaccinated. That's around 6% of the Corps. Losing these capable service members and showing unvaccinated Americans that they should not join our armed forces makes our military less capable. It threatens its ability to do what only the military can do. In total, there are reports of approximately 60,000 unvaccinated service members who risk discharge under less than honorable conditions due to this mandate. 60,000. The Department of Defense, for its part, refuses to provide the number of service members who have applied for vaccine exemptions. But there are reports that even some of the few Americans in military uniform who have received exemptions are seeing those exemptions revoked. That's chilling, to say the least. Relatively few of them are getting them granted. Some of those who have had them granted are seeing them revoked. Now, these service members, like millions of other Americans whose employment has also been put at risk, they all deserve a better option. That's why today I'm asking that the Senate pass my Respecting Our Servicemembers Act. That's why I came to the Senate floor and why a few moments ago I asked unanimous consent that we pass it. Look, I know not everyone is going to agree on every issue here, and that we're not going to agree perhaps on every issue pertaining to the mandate, but I think we at least ought to be able to agree on this one. We ought not be mistreating those upon whom our safety depends. This bill that I brought forward to try to pass today would prohibit the Secretary of Defense from requiring COVID vaccination for our military. I'm grateful to my colleagues, Senators Braun and Tuberville, for joining me. This is now the 18th time I've come to the Senate floor asking that the federal government take a tempered, reasoned approach, an approach that's noticeably absent from that which the President has chosen to pursue. And as I've said every time I've done this, I'm not anti-vaccine. I believe the development of the COVID vaccines is something of a medical miracle. I'm vaccinated. My family's vaccinated. I've encouraged everyone around me to get the vaccine. But I've also acknowledged that's not my decision, and it's certainly not a decision that should be forced on them by the federal government. And certainly not by a single person acting within the federal government who shouldn't be exercising that authority unilaterally. Whether or not vaccines should be mandated by the federal government is, of course, an entirely different, freestanding question. Our military service members deserve the right to make this medical decision for themselves without the threat of losing the ability to care for themselves and provide for their families. They currently face being forced out of the military, out of military service, but also out of the benefits that they've earned. And to add insult to injury, they also are threatened with the risk of a less than honorable discharge. All for the supposed grave sin of deviating, daring to deviate from presidential medical orthodoxy. Or better than this, this is not something that we should be doing. Everyone knows it. Deep down, we know it's wrong. You know, according to a recent Axios poll, only 14% of the American people agree with President Biden's apparent assumption that someone should be fired as a consequence of declining to get the vaccine. That's wrong. That's why I came here today. That's why I'll be back as many times, as long as it takes, to end these mandates. Madam President, it's unfortunate that this legislation, which should be easy to pass, it's unfortunate that it wasn't able to pass today. It's unfortunate that it drew an objection. The American people don't want this, and our national security is undermined by it. I find that most unfortunate, and I'll continue to fight it. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor. And note the absence of a quorum.